On this week's KSP News Show, we get our first look at the overhauled buoyancy mechanics in 1.0.5, and they're pretty damn awesome. And KSP Media Group members get their pre-release copies of 1.0.5, meaning the update is very, very close. All that and more on this week's very, very exciting KSP News Show.
Reporting live from the Kerbal Space Center, it's your host, Jinli Kerman.
Good morning, evening and afternoon, my fellow Kerbonauts. My name is Jinli Kerman. Welcome back to this week's very, very special edition of the KSP News Show. Why is it so special? Well, it's because that 1.0.5 is very, very close. This could potentially be the last episode that I make before the thing actually releases. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of things to do with 1.0.5 in this, both of which you heard in the intro, but just before we do start off with that, I do want to say the Q&A questions I asked for last week, I am still doing that, don't worry. I realise that we're almost at 1,000 subscribers now, which is literally insane, bearing in mind that's a 900 subscriber Q&A, but I will be doing the Q&A, don't worry, it's just taking a little bit longer to film than I perhaps anticipated, but hopefully it should be out within the next week or so stay tuned for that. But I'm not going to keep you guys any longer, so let's get straight into this news because it is pretty damn awesome. And so, as I believe I mentioned in last week's episode, the buoyancy mechanics with regards to fluids on the surface of bodies such as the water on Kerbin is being overhauled in 1.0.5. You guys have had the issue of, I don't know, landing a craft perhaps maybe 1 meter per second too fast and have it just split apart as soon as it hits the water because landing on water is more dangerous than landing on land in Kerbal Space Program. Well, that is no longer the case because now Kerbal Space Program are overhauling the buoyancy feature so that it's actually a bit more realistic. This now of course means that craft can actually go underwater, and we've got our first actual visual representation of this in the form of a screenshot. In this week's dev notes it says, "Not shy of a challenge, Nathan added some nice tinting when underwater. Buoyancy changes have added something of a hit so far with the testers, and we hope you'll enjoy them as much as them." And I actually think this screenshot, which I'll put on the screen now for you, I think it actually looks pretty damn cool actually. Going underwater and exploring like the seabed of Kerbin, that's something that I've always wanted to do for a really long time. Unfortunately, I've never really got the chance because I've never really wanted to play around with the mods because I've found that they've always crashed my game as soon as I've tried to do it. And plus, as soon as you get past 1 kilometer below the surface of the water, Kerbin's height map used to just make you explode basically because you actually cut through the height map of the planet. And so hopefully that, like I said in last week's episode, that will be fixed. And hopefully it will give us an extra way to actually explore Kerbin. We'll see it in a light that we've never actually seen it in before. I definitely do like the fact that it's sort of like foggy the deeper down you go into the water as well. Sort of like a sediment sort of thing, and also the fact that the light from the sun's obviously being blocked, but the deeper down you go, the more and more light is being blocked. I think that's definitely a very, very cool feature. But guys, I want to know, what do you think of this new buoyancy feature? Because I personally think that it's pretty damn awesome, personally. It's something that I've wanted in KSP for a long time. Like I say, if you have like empty tanks that are full of nothing but air and no fuel, they will float. Whereas if you have heavy tanks and stuff like that, they'll now sink and stuff. Meaning you can actually build seaplanes and the like and all that sort of good stuff. So like I say, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I think that it's personally pretty awesome. And yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, I am really interested to hear them. Just as sort of a segue to the next story as well, I highly recommend going and checking out Scott Manley's overview of the 1.0.5 update. He's got it a little bit early because he's a member of the media group, and it really does do a good job of showing off some of the new Mark 1 parts and engines and stuff like that, all of which are very, very awesome. I'll leave a link to it down below, and I seriously do suggest that you go and check it out. So yes, this brings us neatly on to the next story for today, which is about YouTubers from the media group, the KSP media group, getting their copies of 1.0.5. Now, not only does this mean that we can now see the 1.0.5 updates now working for the first time and some of the features actually in the flesh, but it all now means that 1.0.5 cannot be too far away. Like, seriously, if it's more than like 2 weeks away now, I would be very, very surprised. Squad have already stated in this week's most recent dev notes that they are in the final stages of the experimental testing, which is the last phase before it actually goes out on full release. They're in the last few stages of that, squashing any final bugs and stuff like that. And so the fact that the pre-release version is now out to YouTubers and stuff like that, and they're bringing us content showing us what 1.0.5 now looks like as an almost completed update, definitely does show that the update is not too far away. Like I say, I think it will probably be out within the next week or so, but like I say, never quote me on that. The update will always be ready when it's ready. For all we know, there may be a game-breaking bug that hasn't actually been discovered yet, and may put it back by a couple of weeks, but honestly, most likely, I reckon that the update's no more than a week or so away, guys, so stay tuned for that. I'm very much looking forward to it. On the subject of 1.0.5 as well, we also have 2 awesome new parts that were confirmed in the dev notes this week that Scott Manley didn't actually cover in his video that are coming in 1.0.5. In this week's dev notes, it says, "It's time to look at what else has been going on in the process. Bob, aka Rover Dude, has new resource parts, specifically a small radial tank as well as a new, smaller drill. These smaller bits will have certain drawbacks. For example, the smaller ISRU converter cannot operate for long periods, and the drill requires a minimum ore concentration to be present. This makes the smaller ISRU, I can't pronounce that for some reason, good for biome hopping, but not so good for long-term refueling bases. The smaller drill can work great for smaller ships, but will require more careful planning compared to the usual land, drill and prey prospect mechanics some are used to." Now, the fact that Squad are adding in these smaller mining parts now, I reckon this is most definitely a good thing, because I can't tell you the amount of times that I've tried to maybe put some refining like tools such as the refinery that we have already onto a ship already, only to find out that that refinery or the drills and stuff were just either too heavy or just too large to actually put on the ship, meaning that perhaps the mission was potentially compromised. And so the fact they're adding in these small ones makes it brilliant for smaller craft, perhaps just landers or something like that, meaning it makes picking your landing site even more of an important thing to do. I actually also think the drawbacks they have compared to the larger ones as well are actually pretty fair drawbacks, to be honest, and ones that you would expect from smaller pieces of mining equipment. Unfortunately, as of yet, I don't actually have an image of them to show you, but they're definitely coming 1.0.5, and I am very, very excited for them. I know also that PorkJet has actually been trying to model the inside of a turbine for the large underslung jet engine that we are going to be getting in 1.0.5 as well. It's an experiment that he's been trying at the moment, and he wants it to actually turn when you actually have the engines turned on. Because if you've used any of the underslung jet engines at the moment with the intake and everything, you'll know the turbine is completely stationary. It's nothing more than a texture or what have you. So to actually having it moving, I reckon that adds a tiny bit more realism, and it also looks kind of cool. So if this is able to be pulled off, and it is actually in the final update, then I reckon that's definitely a very, very good thing. But that's pretty much going to round it off for this episode, guys. Sorry if it was a bit disjointed. I have had next to no time. I wanted to get this thing out today because I have no idea when 1.0.5 is going to be launching, and for all I know, it could be launching tomorrow, so I want to get this up as soon as I possibly can, and I've had to do this in spite of having to do homework simultaneously and having PC issues to deal with, which I have now sorted, but I still have got to get this edited and uploaded, so I'm sorry if it's a little disjointed, a little out in the open. I just wanted to get this information to you as quickly as I possibly could, so hopefully you made sense of a lot of this. Like I said, the Q&A is taking a little longer to film than I expected, but do expect that at some point this week, providing nothing goes dreadfully wrong. Also, I do suggest that you go follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description down below. That will keep you updated with all of my life ramblings and the channel, and updates with whether episodes are going to be late, whether they're going to be on time, what's going to be in them. I suggest you follow me on Twitter, which again, the link is in the description down below. You can keep up to date with all that good stuff. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much going to round it off for this episode. Remember to like and subscribe for more. My name is Jinley Kerman, and as always, stay classy.